Hey everybody, I'm Invisible Katana, and this video is another in a series of videos that I'm doing for a year-long celebration of Back to the Future, specifically Back to the Future Part 2 because it's 2015, but just the entire franchise in general. And this video I want to devote to sort of a weird what-if type of scenario, and it's just, what if they didn't use the DeLorean in Back to the Future? What if it was a different car? What if it was like, just a big truck or something like that? What if it was a fire truck or something really weird? And the reason I was thinking about that was because, as the DeLorean, was used in that film, it became like a really, really popular car. It was popular before, but, you know, after that, it's the Back to the Future car. Whenever, nerdy people like me see a DeLorean, you think Back to the Future, and it's kind of made that car incredibly popular because it was in this amazing film. So it's like, well, that's the car to this film. You see it, you just think, that's the Back to the Future car. You don't think, oh, that's a DeLorean, which, that's what it is. It's just a DeLorean, but they made it really special. Just like, well, I can't use the Batmobile. That's a terrible example because that would look really cool no matter what. But, it's one of those types of things where it's something that, because it's in this film, it's cooler. Like, a good example, I think, as far as Batmobiles go, the Graveler, I don't really like that personally as a Batmobile. It looks really cool because it has like a cool tank design, but as far as Batmobiles go, it's definitely my least favorite. But it is cool because technically it is a Batmobile. But if I saw that like just randomly, I'd be like, like it doesn't really look that cool. Like if I saw the other Batmobiles and they weren't in Batman movies, I'd be like, they might look weird, but they still at least look kind of cool to me. Like the Graveler is just, it really does just look like an army vehicle, and that's not really cool. It has like, an interesting design to it because it's a giant thing, but the way they do the angles and stuff, it looks cool with like sort of how it goes down for the nose and the front. That I do like. It's just an interesting design, but it's not the same thing with the DeLorean where it's like, that car, it looks cool even without it being the Back to the Future car, but it's obviously just really amped up with it, being attached to such a popular film franchise. And I was wondering, what if they used something else? What if they just used a car from the 50s? What if the story was that Doc used his car, like, for whatever reason? He kept his car that he had in the 50s, which he'd have to do so much crazy work to keep that going in, 1985 from 1955. Especially considering he was obviously an adult who was driving around all the time. But, what if he used his own car? It was just like a cool 50s car, and, it would have to be so different. It couldn't have, like, the giant, basically they're like giant thrusters on the back of the DeLorean. It just wouldn't work for certain car designs, and I think, that's kind of why they chose the DeLorean. Is like, it just, like, everything about it was kind of perfect. It was like, do you do a four-door car? Do you do a two-door car? They had it where if you have all this cool stuff on the back, you could still use the front because in the DeLoreans, the trunk is in the front of the car instead of the back. And we have cars like that today where it's kind of the same thing, and they're mostly all kind of like the DeLorean where they're real big sports cars. And I don't know if the DeLorean would technically be classified as a sports car, but those type of cars like Bugattis or whatever, those kind of have the same thing where there really isn't a trunk sometimes, and it's well, the trunk is in the front instead of in the back. It's flipped around. But it was something that just popped into my head, and it made me really curious. Like, how would how would things be really different? Would it be the same where the car is still as recognized? Is it the fact that it is a DeLorean that kind of makes it so popular because the DeLorean itself does look cool? Like I said, even with all that stuff on it, it's a cool looking car. It just looks even cooler because it's a bunch of nerdy stuff, on the outside and on the inside of it. But it would be incredibly different. Like if it was any car from the 50s, or if it was like some weird, like if it was like an old timey 1920s type car or something like that, it wouldn't be the same thing. It wouldn't have that same attachment, I don't think. And as cool as it would still be like the cool Back to the Future car. But you take all the Back to the Future stuff away, and is it really that sweet? Like, and so, well, I guess for a 1920s car, to me, I still think that's sweet. But in some aspects, like, you couldn't do like a minivan. Like, I don't think a minivan would work, even with a bunch of Back to the Future stuff on it, or even a regular van. That might look even weirder because it's even bigger. But like some things are just, they just wouldn't work, and I always find it kind of interesting thinking about the DeLorean and how it's just like, it's this really cool car. It has minor variations between the three films. Like the first one is kind of a normal DeLorean, and so is the second one. Really, it just has different stuff on the back with the Mr. Fusion. That's really like the only difference. And the third one is the one where it's the most different because it has like the white wall rims, which I love because I think white wall rims look really really cool on cars. And even that I thought looked really sweet. I was like, it's weird that that fits on the DeLorean to me. Like I look at the whole car, and it's not just that it's white wall rims. I believe they have like a little red in them too. So it's kind of like classic cars that you do see in films all the time, where it's like, oh, he has like white wall rims, and then he has like the red around it and stuff. And it's just something about that oddly fits for the DeLorean. Like I would never, if I had one myself, I wouldn't think to put white wall rims on it. But in the movie, it just worked. And even with the little like the crazy old west contraption they kind of put on the front of the car because that's what they needed to do to help it run, it still just works. And it's something that that type of thing doesn't translate to every single vehicle. But a question I wanted to kind of throw out to you guys is, if there was a vehicle that could have been used, what would it be for you? And this could be a car that was, made both in the past or currently. It could be something like, if you really love Challengers, if they had that in the past, would you like to see a Challenger kind of souped up like the DeLorean was? And obviously for every car there would be some alterations because obviously every car is kind of built differently. But if there was a different car, what would it be? Like if you had to say, instead of the DeLorean, it's this, what car would you choose? Because there are obviously a ton of different options. It could be, it could be a truck, or it could be a van if you like that, or it could be a car. I would love to see like some made up picture of someone using like one of those really tiny electric cars, which basically just look like pods. Like if they, if you push them hard enough, they'll fall right over. But I would love to see a picture of one of those like souped up like the DeLorean with like big thrusters. It would probably never go anywhere because the thrusters would be too heavy. But I would love to see that because it would just be hilarious. That would be a terrible choice, I think, personally. But I kind of wanted to throw that question out there. What if the DeLorean was different? Like if it wasn't the DeLorean, what would be a good second option? Like there are of course a ton of cool cars, that were in existence during that time that they could have used. But I kind of like how the DeLorean looks. Of course, the fact that it's a silver car, I think, does play a lot into it because it's not, silver isn't something I feel you see even today. Like you see it a lot more today because I think we just have the ability to just like, just paint this and that because we can have better tech. Even just for painting cars, it's better technology. So we get more options. But back then, I think silver was really, really rare compared to now, where you still don't see it nearly as often, but it's much more common. But it's still technically, I would consider it a rare color for cars. You still don't see that too often where something's like a silver car. And, I think that's kind of a big factor into it. It's like something about the one color of it and it being silver is something that you don't see too often, really does make the car stand out. And with all the imagery around the car, like no matter what scene it's in, if you really think about it, the DeLorean stands out a lot because of the silver color to it. Like if it was a blue car or a black car, or maybe a green car would probably stand out a bit. But if it was a more basic color that you see all the time, it would still look cool. But if you think about it, it wouldn't stand out nearly as much as like, here's this cool silver car with, obviously thrusters are going to stand out no matter what you put them on. But it's like this silver car surrounded by like either 1950 stuff, especially 1950 stuff, I think. And then you have like the 1985 stuff. And the way they do it in Back to the Future, it's kind of like Marty lives in like not the greatest neighborhood, so it's darker colors anyway, with like typical just like brown brick houses and things like that. So it makes it stand out even more. Like the only other thing that would stand out like the DeLorean is like the trash cans that Doc crashes into, and that's really about it. But I wanted to throw the question out there to you guys. If you had to replace the DeLorean with any car, no matter, what country it's from or what time it was made in, what would it be? And, why? Like, why do you choose that car? Is it your favorite? Do you think, it would just work, even if it's not your favorite car, it would just look good with, the thrusters on the back, and it would fit all the stuff on the inside that we get to see with, like, the flux capacitor. It would, be displayed in the right way, and the time circuits and all that stuff. It's just a good place, within the car, whatever it is. I want to know, so please put your comments down in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.